Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Priya. Today's webinar, we will be discussing the release of a new regulatory guideline made by ANVISA in Brazil. This is quite a significant change, so it's good to have you here. For those of you who may not be familiar with RegDesk is a holistic RIM solution with built-in regulatory intelligence and AI capability that allows RA teams to prepare, manage, and publish global technical files within hours compared to months. You can obtain daily updates on regulatory changes. You can collaborate with distributors, track your registrations, obtain renewal notifications, and also manage standards, including performing gap assessments directly through the system. We work with a lot of mid to large medtech companies. If you'd like to learn more or try the platform for free at no cost, happy to accommodate that and schedule that for you. Just reach out to us. Before we begin our discussion this morning, I'd like to turn our attention to our attendees. Thank you so much for joining us. At the end of this meeting, we will hold a brief Q&A. We encourage your participation, so please refer to the chat button on your screen. In the interest of time, please submit your questions throughout the course of our talk, and we'll try to address as many of your questions as we can. In case we run out of time, please email your questions to us, and we'll try to address them via email for you. Also, we'd love to get your feedback on today's webinar and ideas you may have for future webinar topics. Your feedback's always welcome and something we sincerely consider. And today we have my colleague, Pablo Ojeda from Argentina joining us, and he is an expert, the best way to put it, for the LATAM region. He's done a lot of submissions in the region, and Pablo will be discussing today some major update for Brazil ANVISA, and he has a PowerPoint presentation, and so which he will share through the screen, but also we can send it to you if you'd like the PowerPoint at the end of the meeting. That being said, Pablo, thank you for joining and thank you for summarizing the latest update for us. I'll hand over the presentation to you and get you started on this.
Thank you, Bria. Thank you for having me. I'm pleased to present this information, these changes of the regulation, and welcome to all the attendees. Be free open to ask me anything, the question and answer at the end. I will try to go to these changes in the very dynamic way. I will share my screen and let me know if you are seeing the presentation.
Yes, everyone should be able to see it.
Excellent. Well, these changes in Brazil regulations are made by ANVISA. As you know, ANVISA, maybe you know, ANVISA is the agency for the vigilance and safety of the medical devices, as the FDA and other regulatory authorities in the world. Brazil, as you know, is one of the major countries in economics and in medical devices as well, and is doing harmonization to international requirements. And you can see it here, the changes in the regulation 751 2002 that applies to the regulation 185 2001. Well, we will discuss briefly the relevant requirements for the companies that are doing business in Brazil now, as is the impact of the already registered products in Brazil. There are some changes that you have to take a look how to apply it for your devices, and briefly also review the harmonization process in each of these slides when you're taking this information from sanitary vigilance agents, national vigilance agencies. This agency is working as part of the IMDRF, and other international regulations agencies. Well, this RDC, this regulation was in place many years ago, and the Mercosur was working on the changes of this regulation, the 40 for 2000, and they were changing the regulation to the 25 and 2021, sorry, and this change pushed the changes of the region as Brazil and Argentina. One of these major changes is in the registration notification of products and other requirements of the regulation. This the GMC from the Mercosur is a mandatory law, upper law for these countries, and Brazil and Argentina, etc., in Mercosur are working on these upgrades. Well, we have many regulations, lack of definitions, new technology were not included. You imagine 20 years ago, different criteria to major countries that are making changes than the European Union and the United States. And now we're moving to the integrated regulations, improved definitions, new technologies included, and harmonization. The scope of new regulations is the risk classification process and of notification, registration, and some changes in labeling and instruction for use requirements of medical devices. This is very specific because in this regulation, you have only these changes. Maybe and another regulation in the future will change more, widen the change of for all other process. For example, in this case, in 22 also changed the GMP certification. In this case, it's not affected, it's already in place. In this case, we are not talking about IVD, they are not affected. They are not affected the Brazilian conformity assessment system, the certification of products specifically certified by this organism. The clinical studies are not affected. And we are talking about notification registration of medical devices, changes in the classification, as I said before, for the harmonization, and provide requirements for information for users, as you know, the IFUs and labeling. Well, this is a scope of the main changes. Classification, I told you, technical documents, notification, and registration. I go through to these main points. There are other many, but these are the big ones. Classification and definition, they increase the amount of rules for classification by including some aspects like software and other special rules that take a end of 22 rules as in NDR and as the MDR are. It's included the software as medical device. It's classified as a standalone, you know, and also the software-driven medical device. Accessories, they have a special classification and rules about this, how use the classification of an accessory related to the medical device. Special rules include nanomaterials. This is most intended to include nanomaterials into the medical devices in contact with tissues, etc. And nanomaterials, as you know, is a very cutting-edge technology, implementing from, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 years, but now it's in the regulations. Are more specific implementation rules, for example, the contact period calculation, and all of you are familiar with the MDR. It's very similar to the MDR, the alignment to the classification rules. This highlights is not intended for this webinar to go in deep in these items, but as mentioned, the blood conducting container devices are changing the classification. Maybe some of them are mentioned in the MDR also, and you can remember from them. Software of medical device, administration of drugs, nanomaterials, M devices, medical devices, sorry, in contact with human cells or embryos prior to implantation. This is the highlights where the classification get up from the 2 to 3 or 3 to 4, right? This is going to be a big change because some devices are going to be registered instead of notified, as I will mention more ahead. Well, also some devices definitions were need to be upgraded or included because the medical device was widened, the definition was widened to include all intended use, aligning this very similar to the MDR or equals. As I said before, the software medical device was clearly defining. It's a very defined. It's a very comprehensive definition. There is a new player in the field. That's the holder of notification or registration. This is a person or company that could have the notification on his name for the company. Does not need to be the importer. Before, we have the importer was an authorized representative, and now we can have the holder and the importer and distributor, of course. Distributor, importer, and holder can be different persons or different companies. Accessories were defined because in the former regulations, accessories were like a complementary device, but in this case, accessories are needed to complete and the functioning of the device, not only accompanying the device. This was a change of the definition. What is changing in the notification and registration process? Before, we have two regulations in different standards for notification and registration. They are both compounded here. For the notification, class 1 and class 2 devices are through the notification process. Class 3 and class 4 are going to be in the registration process. The main difference is that the registration process has the old revision of the technical dossier and has more strict requirements for the GMP certification, and it has more requirements for clinical and validation by compatibility, etc. Doesn't change too much from the former regulation, but is compounding in one, right? The notification class 1 and class 2 is a process that was in place many years ago. There is a regulation from 2015, and now it's in here in one place. And the requirements, there's no need to present the technical dossier, but having one is required, but not presenting to the agency. The regulation established a timeline to review the technical file of 30 days. Nothing said about the new timeline for the technical dossier for the class 3 and 4, but it's going to be in a further degree when this regulation is implemented. The validity of the registration and notification for both are 10 years. This the same. And recently, the ANVISA has released the official documents for these processes for notification request form of materials or equipment, for registration also, and specific for software. Any modification to a notification also is in a declaration, and very good instruction documents for materials and equipment if you want to go through the process and understand in deep. You can access this document of this URL if you want. We can share with you this information. It's in Portuguese. You can translate from the website, but it's not all in Portuguese. What about technical documentation? Technical documentation is not the new requirements. It's only presenting the documentation in a repository, presenting the new documentation in the registration process is very critical. Is there harmonization to the IMDR technical dossier? You can see in this regulation the same table from the AMDR. Sorry. Therefore, the technical documentation is matchable to the major countries. And it has defined a medical device documentary repository where when initially you have to upload instruction for use and in critical labeling in the ANVISA portal for being available for users, reviewed and available for users. The new definition is about non-printed formats. For example, the EIFU. The EIFU is not allowed for domestic use, for non-professional use because it's critical, but it's now presented as an alternative to the paper EIFU, and you can submit to the ANVISA your EIFU if you have it. The notification and notification and registration request is requested in Portuguese only, but other documents can be presented in Portuguese, English, or Spanish. They are willing to review the documents in these 3 documents, only for those that are needed to be translated because a certification with an external, for example, the documents that need to be the Convention of Haga. This is only the documents you need to present in English, translated and certified. What is the purpose of being the EIFU in the repository? Is uploading, updating, and availability of these documents, the last revision for each certified or each registered product. Initially, the registered products only have to be in the repository. The class 1 and class 2, not for that for this moment, but it's the need to update this document in the repository for being available for users in case you have it. What is the impact of the assessment as we can see as far as now? Well, we see you can have 2 situations. You can go through the classification and find that your product is classified for this new rules, and you have 1 year, 365 days for the adequation period for those products that are changing from list in case of notification to registration. This is because your product is not under process of registration. Your technical dossier is not reviewed by the ANVISA. And if new classification rules applies, you need to present the product as the new product, right? Here we recommend to start the reviewing of this classification and prepare yourself for the new standard. The new standard was in place in March 1st. Therefore, you have 1 year to adequate in case you have a product changed the registration, right? The new submission shall be presented at new product registration, of course, because the problem is for products up classified. They are changing the risk. You have to review it. You have to submit the new technical dossier for revision. When you have the GMP, this is why you classify the product, and the GMP is mandatory. You need to present the GMP certification request. If you don't have your GMP from ANVISA yet, you need to present that you ask for the certification, you ask for the audit, and a request in progress is accepted for the initiation of the registration, right? The final registration will be deferred until GMP certificate is granted, but this submission is applicable. For non-up classified product but affected, this is changing the rule but not changing the class. Changing the rule but not changing the class. Those products should be adequate, changing the documentation and classification for the next time when you are revalidating or notifying or registration of your product. Only this is not to hurry about presenting now, but you have to present it in the new registration of validation. Well, what are the final conclusions? As far as I know, as far as I reviewed the registration and the notification system, they are doing an harmonization process. This is not a total change of the regulatory framework from ANVISA, just to an harmonization of these requirements. They play up-to-date standards and regulations, right? And they were working with the Mercosur and the IMDRF in this harmonization, and it's the worldwide trend that they changing the regulations together, especially this country that is the big ones in the regulatory and the economics. This new regulation was very welcome, and you can see that many others are coming to be reviewed and change it. The whole framework will change, as I understand. They include new terminology because the innovation is really quick. The innovation is really hard, and new technologies like nanomaterials, software, and medical device. I think in the future, other process could be included. They have included this in new regulations, and the optimization of regulatory process and technical documentation will be very helpful for the manufacturers in order to improve the device's approval, the place in the market that device. A typical question is that they are improving the timelines, they are improving the standards of time. It's not clear from the regulation that they are changing critical changes on the times. They also said that in class 1, class 2, the notification will be reviewed within 30 days. The national administrative regulations said that all the process will be done in 6 months, but in reality, in the actual time when you leave a registration process is more than that. I hope it will be improved in the future. It's clear also an improvement of the risk-based evaluation of the medical devices. We can talk the same language with the European Union and the United States, and this improvement will have a possibility to match with the registration in other countries. I think this is the most critical of this process. Well, this is the presentation of these changes. I wait for your any questions, comments, or what do you want to ask?
Yes, thank you, Pablo. As you guys,
Thank you.
Yes, as everyone must have realized, you might have been aware of this already, but this is quite a significant change. Countries are slowly aligning with the MDR. We have a few questions. One of them is, could class 3 devices be downgraded by the new rules?
No, I don't think so. If you have changes in your intended use, maybe it could change, but there is not from these changes that the class 3 product can down class.
So down class is it's probably very unlikely. Another question.
Very unlikely.
Yeah. Another question is, the RDC 40, which is in place, is that still the process for notification for class 1 and 2?
No. It's included into this 751 2022 regulation. They have included all the notification and registration in the same regulation as before.
Another question is, do accessories now assume the highest level of class for their supported implant? Because that's big with MDR regulations.
Sorry, again?
The accessories. So with the EU MDR, now for many products, if certain accessories can also be considered, let's say, class 2B or 3. So the question is, will the accessories also assume the highest level of class for their supported implant? So did ANVISA take that piece, the up classification of accessories, also as part of their new regulation?
Yes, of course. An accessory can assume the higher level because they consider that the accessory now with the new regulation is not complementing, it's not as part of the functioning of the device. In that case, will be the highest level according to the rest of the device.
And then another question is, what does general domestic use mean? So, for example, if a US company is using an IFU, electronic IFU, is that allowed?
In general domestic use is, in this case, you said a device can be applied for the patient on its own. In this case, the general domestic, not all the products that they have a very specific application. These products are not allowed to have EIFU. Only for those that they are definite, they cannot be changed by the patient, the application, right? The problem is for the risk of human factors when you apply it in the general domestic use.
I know we're running over time, so we appreciate you all being here. We'll stand by for another couple minutes just to address some of the questions, but if you have to leave for a meeting, we understand. So proceeding with the questions, another question is, do the changes impact requirements of InMetro certification for class 2 devices?
No, the InMetro certification class 2 remains the same because the conformity assessment body, the conformity assessment system is not changing for those products in class 1 and class 2. Only those products passing from 2 to 3 that were in the conformity assessment system are going to be evaluated by the ANVISA system of auditors. They are not changing nothing about the metro regulations.
I know you and I discussed this, Pablo. So similar question. The question is, if I already have renewed my device registration, for example, in December 22, just recently, do I need to wait until my next renewal to apply these new rules, or do I need to update the data already submitted to the authority?
If you have an upgraded classification, you have 1 year to be in the new classification and in the registration process. But if you have already passed the registration process, you don't have to do anything. You have to wait until you do your new renewal to apply the changes.
And it's also only if you have, if your product that you just got renewal for has been upgraded, right? If it's not been upgraded per the new rules, then you're okay.
Right, that's right. The problem is for those that are in the gray zone from 2 to 3, for example, or 3 to 4, where the clinical is highest. You need to review the class 2 to 3, for example, and that it will be a critical change because you have the notification from December, for example. You need to go before December this year to upgrade this notification.
When will the new timeline for new registration of class 3 and class 4 roll out?
First, the date is very specific in the regulation, but it's for the end of March of 24.
Okay. We'll cover one last question. Does software have to be registered separately if it is already registered under the main device registration?
Yes, of course. If the software can be applied to medical devices as a standalone, you have to split it from the medical device and register the software for its own.
And last one, I know I keep saying that, but then we'll end because I'm sure everyone has to get going. Is GMP certificate required for registrations and notifications?
Yes, it's required for both, but just in the case of 3 and 4, class 3 and 4, ANVISA is willing to do the audits in the country. But if you are in the major countries, you can submit your certification from ISO and for the review instead of the GMP from ANVISA. In class 1 and class 2, they would be needed to present the GMP certification, right?
And I know we've been asked that whether we will send out, whether we can send out the presentation slides. Of course, we will. And if you have any questions, I know there are 2-3 left that we didn't get to address. If you don't mind, please email us those questions. We're happy to address those for you via email. Once again, thank you so much, Pablo, for sharing the details.
Thank you too.
And thank you to all our participants for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you.